Hello, my name is Liza Elise, or Cafe Misery, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the decks that got some pretty interesting cards in the, as of recording, most recent set to release, DZ-BT-12. That being Malwyrm Sybilt. Sybilt as a Vanguard, as a deck, really focuses around maintaining resources by the fact that you're retiring your own rear guards, being able to maintain those boards, those numbers, and also having access to some pretty good multi-attack. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the list. You got, of course, the User Dragon Sybilt as the grade 0, and then the grade 1 boy aspiring to join the Protectors, Sybilt, who, when placed from riding unit with Sybilt as card name, you get to reveal a Sybilt. From the ride deck, search the deck for one copy of Spirit and Sybilt, who we once were, and put it to hand. That is an order card that we will get to shortly. It's a grade 2 order. Going on our grade 2, we've got Distorted Heart Spirit, who has the ability that when he attacks by retiring your rear guard and revealing your grade 3 Sybilt from the ride deck, draws you a card and gains an additional 5, so it'll be a 15k swing. And of course, we have our main Vanguard, the Malwyrm Sybilt, who, as an act once per turn, can soul blast a card and choose the same number of cards as your opponent has grades. So 2 to 4, depending on your opponent's grade when you go into him. And it's going to give them the Mentally Polluted State, additional 5k, and the auto that at the end of the turn they retire. He's also got this skill at the bottom that when your unit in the Mentally Polluted State retires during your end phase, you get to draw a card. And at the end of the battle, he attacked. You can counterblast one, choose one of your mentally polluted rear guards or your Vanguard and restand it with a drive set to 0 and an additional 10k. And if the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you actually get to pick 2 units instead. Going into our grade 3s, of course, run 3 more. And then we're also on 2 copies of Drag Resonance, who gives your Vanguard the ability that when this unit restands, all of your front row units gain 10k until end of turn. Going to the grade 2 cards, we've got 4 copies of Desolate Flare Dragon, who gains the following skills as long as you have a Unison Dragon Vanguard. So you can only do these skills on grade 3 onward. On place, you can counterblast one to check the top some cards of your deck and either add a Unison Dragon or an Order without Regardless piece to hand. If you don't reveal a card to add to hand, you shuffle, so you can add your Persona Ride or your Orders. And when he attacks, he's going to gain 5k. Then you can EB3 to pick a rear guard and give it the auto that when it be retired from rear guard circle, it gets to be put back into hand. So that's one of the ways you're going to be able to plus off of retiring or keep your resources up. Another way you're going to be able to maintain resource pretty well is Demonic Dragon Berserker Baki, who, when you play an order card, as long as you have a Unison Dragon Vanguard, you can call for a counterblast. And during your turn, as long as the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, he'll gain 5. Then, if he's in the mentally polluted state, he'll get an extra 5. So that's plus 25 for mentally polluting him. And along with that, going into one of the new cards the deck has access to, I'm with 3 copies of Dragon Vortex Splagiacro, who, when discarded for Ride, can be called as Rest, but if the Vanguard is on grade 2 or greater, or you're on a Dino Dragon Vanguard, it gets called a Stand. As long as the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, he's a 10k guard, and if your Vanguard's on grade 3, he's a 10k booster and can intercept from the back row. Rounding out the last of our grade 2 unit cards, I'm on 2 copies of Dragon Rider Latifa, who, as long as she wasn't placed by unit card's ability and you played an order during the turn, you can soul blast one to check the top 5 and either call a unit with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard or add a normal order to hand. And when she attacks a grade 3 greater unit, she gets 5k for every one of the opponent's open rearguard circles in the same column. The reason I'm on 2 is because deck space is sometimes a little tight, and I'd much rather be on some of the more in-archetype stuff that can be recycled, like Baki or another card we'll get to later. or like the Desolate Flare, or some of the bigger guard pieces like Bligiacro, she's kind of just a bonus to round out the deck. And rounding out our grade 2s is Spirit and Sybilt, Who We Once Were, which can be played as long as you have a Spirit or Sybilt Vanguard. It gives the Vanguard the ability that once per turn, when one of your rearguards is retired from the rearguard circle, other than during the main phase, you can add back to hand. Along with that, as a drop zone skill, that when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Sybilt and its card name restands, you can bind and discard a card to set the Vanguard's drive to 1. So that lets you do 3 drive checks for the turn. Going to our grade 1s, I'm on 2 copies of Dragadur Shadiq, who, in the back row, when your unit in the same column restands, as long as she's mentally polluted, she'll restand with it. And then 3 copies of the brand new Conflagrate Dragon, who, when you play a normal order, as long as you have a Sybilt Vanguard and you don't have a copy of it on board already, it'll call itself, and while it's in the mentally polluted state, it'll give the unit in front of it an extra 5k if the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater. Finishing up grade 1 rearguards, I'm on 3 copies of Dragadur Mitot, who, when your unit stands by a card ability, you can retire it to draw a card, so that's more blessing. And of course, Purple Guards. Moving into our triggers, I'm on 8 critical triggers. You don't need the soul crits because Spread of Sybilt goes to soul when you play it, and the only soul blasts you're doing throughout the game are going to be your Latifa and your Sybilts. I'm on 3 of the shield fronts. Four heal triggers, and of course, it's Dragon Empire. My OT of choice for the deck is going to be Drag Veda. Going to the pros and cons of this deck, the pros are it can be a very aggressive turn. It's got 4 swings, no matter what, as long as you have the Counterblast. 5 if your opponent's on grade 3. It's got the versatility for you to decide, hey, I want the Vanguard reswing, I want the extra drive, or I just want to put pressure on with rear guards. I want to stack up as many of his recovery skill in a turn. 2, the deck is really good at recycling pieces. Again, Spirit and Sybilt gives you the ability to recycle a unit that's retired as long as not during the main phase. Desolate Flare gives units that same skill. And you're also always plussing off it. Mitot can just draw a card when by his own skill. At the end of the turn, Sybilt will draw you an extra card. And you've got a bunch of units that are going to be okay with you just going to drop because you get to play them back as long as you play an order. That's why we're on 6 orders. Along with that, there's just a lot of free discards in the deck. We've got 10 alone with these guys. And then you don't always need to be playing the Spirit and Sybilt as your order. You going into the first grade 3 turn, I really like doing the Drag Resonance because there's a lot of extra pressure off that. But going into the cons of the deck, aside from the 10k that Sybilt gives himself and the 5ks, the deck kind of caps at like 40k without triggers, which sounds like a lot, but with how many defensive pieces there are in the game currently, it can really slow down. The current format has a lot of decks that just have good defense, which granted, the upcoming ban list hits a lot of the really annoying ways it can do that, and that's good. 2, there's you get a lot of really rough hands. The deck, this build really does kind of live and die on, did you see an order? Can you put more pressure on because you have orders? And if you didn't get the ability to recycle your hand a turn earlier, not seeing the order to help you completely rebuild a board can be really troublesome. And 3, if you don't have the counterblast available to do some of the bigger plays, you may be out of luck because the deck has 1 counterblast a turn. That's mandatory, which doesn't sound like a lot, but your opponent really can just damage deny you to force you into a worse state. But this is the Sybilt list that I'm currently running with. If you guys like the video, you like my list, you like me, go ahead and do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And we'll see you all next time. Ciao.